Hello and welcome. Tonight we are going to explore something quiet and unexpected: the world of mushrooms. These curious organisms appear overnight, glow softly in darkness, and connect entire forests through hidden threads beneath the soil. They are neither plant nor animal, but something altogether different. A kingdom of their own that has been shaping life on this planet for longer than we can easily imagine. If you find peace in these gentle explorations, you are welcome to share this with others who might enjoy the same quiet wonder. But for now, let us simply begin. Mushrooms belong to their own separate kingdom of life. In the vast tree of life on Earth, mushrooms occupy a space entirely their own. They are not plants, though they grow from the ground. They are not animals, though they share surprising similarities with us. Fungi form their own kingdom, as distinct from the plants as plants are from animals. This separation happened so long ago that tracing it takes us back hundreds of millions of years, to a time when life was still deciding what shapes it might take. Scientists once grouped fungi with plants because both seemed rooted and still. But closer study revealed the truth. Fungi breathe oxygen and release carbon dioxide, just as we do. Their cells are built with chitin, the same material that forms the exoskeletons of insects and the shells of crabs. They digest their food externally, secreting enzymes into their surroundings and absorbing what breaks down. To walk through a forest and see a mushroom is to encounter a form of life that followed its own path, diverging from ours long ago, yet remaining somehow familiar. They remind us that life explores many directions, and that the categories we create are merely our attempts to organize a world far stranger than our simple labels suggest. The part we call a mushroom is only the fruit. When you see a mushroom pushing up through leaves or growing from the side of a tree, you are seeing only a small part of a much larger organism. The mushroom itself, the cap and stem we recognize, is merely the fruiting body. Its purpose is to release spores, tiny seeds that will drift away to begin new colonies. The true organism lives hidden below, spread through soil or wood in a network of delicate threads called mycelium. These threads can extend for incredible distances, branching and reconnecting, forming networks of astonishing complexity. Think of it like an apple on a tree. The apple is not the tree itself, but a temporary structure designed to spread seeds. In the same way, mushrooms are brief appearances of something far larger and more enduring. The mycelium may live for years, even centuries, quietly breaking down organic matter and forming partnerships with plants. Only when conditions are right, when moisture and temperature align, does it send up mushrooms. The visible is temporary. The invisible is constant. This hidden life reminds us that much of what matters happens out of sight, in the quiet spaces we rarely think to look. Mycelium can live for thousands of years. Beneath the forest floor, fungal networks can persist for time spans that humble our human lives. Some mycelial organisms are thought to be thousands of years old, growing slowly and steadily through soil and wood, surviving seasons and centuries. They expand outward, retreating from exhausted areas and pioneering into new territory. Unlike trees that mark their age in rings, mycelium keeps no visible record of time. It simply continues, adapting to changes in climate, forest composition, and soil chemistry. In some ancient woodlands, the mycelium you walk above may have been there when civilizations rose and fell, when languages were born and forgotten. This longevity speaks to resilience. Fungi do not hurry. They work on timescales measured in decades and centuries, patient recyclers and caregivers of the forest. To know that the ground beneath you may hold life older than nations is to feel a certain humility. Time moves differently down there, in the cool darkness, where mycelium writes its story not in years, but in the slow rhythm of decay and renewal. Some fungi form partnerships with tree roots. In forests around the world, a quiet cooperation unfolds underground. Many trees form partnerships with fungi in relationships called mycorrhizae. The fungal threads wrap around or even penetrate tree roots, vastly extending their reach. Through this connection, trees gain access to water and nutrients, like phosphorus and nitrogen that would otherwise remain locked in soil. In return, the trees provide the fungi with sugars created through photosynthesis. It is a trade, a symbiosis that benefits both partners. Some trees cannot survive without their fungal allies. Seedlings struggle to establish themselves without the boost that mycorrhizae provide. In harsh environments, this partnership can mean the difference between life and death. Walk through a forest, and you are walking above countless invisible handshakes, agreements made in chemistry and need. Trees that appear to stand alone are actually supported by a hidden web. The fungi are mediators, connectors, enablers. They turn isolation into community. This relationship has existed for hundreds of millions of years, refined and strengthened across deep time. It is one of nature's most successful collaborations, proof that survival often depends not on standing alone, but on reaching out. These networks allow trees to share resources. The mycorrhizal networks that link fungi and trees do more than simply exchange nutrients between one tree and one fungus. They create highways through which entire forests can communicate and share. When one tree has excess sugars, perhaps because it stands in full sunlight, it can transfer some of that energy through the fungal network to another tree growing in shade. Seedlings and saplings, too small to photosynthesize effectively on their own, receive support from older trees through these underground channels. Even trees of different species can connect through the same fungal networks, forming a biological internet that ties the forest together. Some scientists call this the wood wide web. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical warnings through the network, and neighboring trees respond by increasing their own defenses. Nutrients flow toward where they are needed most. Sick trees receive support. Young trees are nurtured. The forest, through fungi, behaves less like a collection of individuals and more like a single interconnected organism. Beneath the competition for light and space, there is cooperation. The mycelium facilitates this, acting as both messenger and supply line, stitching the forest into a community. Fungi can break down almost anything organic. One of the most remarkable abilities of fungi is their power to decompose. They produce enzymes capable of breaking down some of the toughest organic materials on Earth. Lignin, the complex molecule that gives wood its strength, resists most forms of decay, but fungi can dismantle it, slowly returning even the largest fallen trees to soil. Cellulose, chitin, keratin, all yield eventually to fungal enzymes. This ability makes fungi essential recyclers. Without them, dead plant material would accumulate endlessly. Forests would become graveyards of their own growth, choked by layers of unrotted wood and leaves. Instead, fungi perform the patient work of decomposition, unlocking nutrients and returning them to the soil where they can nourish new life. In recent years, scientists have discovered fungi capable of breaking down materials we thought nearly indestructible. Some species can digest plastics, petroleum, even toxic chemicals. They transform pollution into harmless compounds, offering hope for cleaning contaminated sites. The fungal talent for breaking things down, for transforming the complex into the simple, is ancient and profound. It is the closing of the circle, the transformation of death into potential, the promise that nothing is ever truly wasted. Some mushrooms can kill you. Among the many fungi, some carry danger in their flesh. The death-cap mushroom, with its innocent appearance and pleasant smell, contains toxins that destroy the liver and kidneys. A single cap can be fatal, and symptoms often do not appear until it is too late for treatment. The destroying angel, pure white and beautiful, is equally deadly. These mushrooms do not warn you with bitterness or foul odors. They're quiet killers. They're poisons, elegant molecules that disrupt the cellular machinery of anyone who eats them. Throughout history, mushrooms have been both food and murder weapon. Accidental poisonings have claimed countless lives, from peasants foraging for dinner to emperors served by assassins. The danger lies in how easily a toxic mushroom can be mistaken for an edible one. A small difference in cap color, a subtle variation in gill, structure, and the line between nourishment and death is crossed. Yet this danger is also a reminder. Nature does not exist for our convenience. Fungi developed their toxins not to harm humans, but to survive in a world of hungry animals and competing organisms. To us, the poison is a tragedy. To the mushroom, it is simply defense. Others are delicious and safe to eat. Not all mushrooms are dangerous. Many are prized as food, valued for centuries for their rich flavors and textures. Chanterelles with their golden color and fruity aroma. Porcini, meaty and earthy, beloved in Italian cuisine. Shiitake, cultivated for thousands of years in Asia. Morels with their honeycombed caps appearing in spring like gifts from the forest. These mushrooms have fed humanity for as long as we have walked the earth. They appear in ancient recipes, in folklore, in the seasonal rhythms of cultures around the world. Foraging for mushrooms is both art and science, requiring knowledge passed down through generations. The weight of a mushroom in your hand, the smell of it, the way it grows, all these details matter. To eat a wild mushroom is to trust accumulated wisdom, to participate in a relationship between humans and fungi that stretches back into prehistory. Beyond their flavor, edible mushrooms offer nutrition. They contain protein, vitamins, minerals, and compounds that support health. Some boost the immune system. Others have been studied for their potential to fight disease. The mushroom on your plate is not just food. It is a bridge to the forest, a product of hidden networks and ancient biology, transformed by heat and skill into nourishment. Mushrooms can grow incredibly fast. One day the ground is bare. The next morning, mushrooms have appeared as if by magic. This sudden emergence is one of their most striking characteristics. Some species can grow several inches in a single day, pushing up through soil with surprising force. The speed is possible because the mycelium has already done the work. It has spent weeks or months spreading through the substrate, gathering nutrients and energy. When conditions become favorable, usually after rain, the mycelium rapidly inflates preformed structures with water. Cells expand, tissues swell, and the mushroom rises. What looks like sudden creation is actually the culmination of long preparation. The growth is hydraulic, driven by water pressure. In time-lapse videos, mushrooms seem to pulse upward like living fountains. This rapid fruiting serves a purpose. The mushroom needs to release its spores quickly before animals eat it or weather destroys it. Speed is survival. The short life of a mushroom is a brief moment of opportunity, a race to reproduce before time runs out. To witness this growth is to see life condensed, urgency made visible. A reminder that even in quiet forests, there is drama unfolding at scales we rarely notice. Some mushrooms glow in the dark. In certain forests at night, a soft green light emanates from decaying wood or clustered mushrooms. This is bioluminescence, the same phenomenon that allows fireflies to flash and deep-sea creatures to glow. More than 70 species of fungi produce light through chemical reactions within their tissues. The light is cold, requiring no heat, generated by enzymes acting on molecules called luciferins. Why do they glow? Scientists believe it may attract insects in the darkness. Drawn to the light, insects brush against the mushroom and carry spores away on their bodies. Or perhaps the glow deters animals that might otherwise eat them. The true purpose remains partly mysterious. What is certain is the effect. To stumble upon glowing mushrooms is to feel you have entered a realm of enchantment. The light is gentle, steady, casting faint green halos in the blackness. For centuries, people spoke of fairy lights and ghost fires, attributing supernatural causes to this natural glow. Even knowing the science, the wonder persists. Bioluminescent mushrooms remind us that the forest holds its own lights, that life can shine without fire or electricity, that beauty exists even where no human eye may ever see it. Mushrooms release billions of spores. A single mushroom can produce an almost unimaginable number of spores. A large bracket fungus may release trillions over its lifetime. A puffball, when mature, can send out countless millions in a single cloud. These spores are microscopic, so small and light that they float through air like invisible dust. Most will never germinate. They will land in places too dry, too cold, or already occupied by other organisms. But sheer numbers compensate for this waste. If even a tiny fraction of spores succeed, the species continues. Spores are built to travel. Some have shapes that catch the wind. Others are sticky, designed to cling to passing animals. They can remain dormant for years, waiting for the right conditions. They can survive extreme temperatures and desiccation. In dispersing so many spores, fungi practice a strategy of abundance. They gamble on quantity, trusting that luck and wind will carry at least some offspring to hospitable ground. When you see a mushroom, imagine the invisible cloud surrounding it, millions of potential futures drifting away on every breeze. Each spore is a message in a bottle, cast into an uncertain world, carrying the possibility of life. Spores can travel across continents. Once released, spores enter the atmosphere and can journey astonishing distances. Wind carries them upward into jet streams, where they may travel thousands of miles before descending. Spores from forests in one hemisphere have been found in the air of another. They cross oceans, deserts, mountain ranges. Some even reach the upper atmosphere, floating at altitudes where few other living things can survive. This long-distance dispersal means that fungi are not confined by geography in the way larger organisms are. A species may appear in widely separated locations, not because it walked or flew there, but because its spores drifted on global winds. This is how fungi colonized remote islands, how they appear in sterile environments soon after disturbances. Wherever air flows, spores follow. For fungi, the atmosphere is a highway without borders. The same winds that shape weather also shape the distribution of fungal life, carrying genetic material across the planet in an endless, invisible rain. To breathe is to inhale a world in motion, to participate in the dispersal of life, to become part of a story much larger than yourself. Fungi existed before trees. The fossil record tells us that fungi walked on land before trees did. When the continents were barren rock and shallow, muddy shores, fungi were already there. More than 400 million years ago, they colonized the land alongside early plants, and possibly even before them. These ancient fungi formed partnerships with the first primitive plants, helping them extract nutrients from rocky substrates. Without fungi, plants might never have successfully transitioned from water to land. The earliest forests, when they eventually appeared, relied on fungal networks just as modern forests do. Before there were towering canopies and leafy understories, there were fungal mats spreading across stone, patiently breaking it down, creating the first soils. Some scientists believe that massive fungal structures, called prototaxites, once rose like pillars from the prehistoric landscape, perhaps towering over the small plants of the time. Imagine a world where fungi, not trees, were the dominant vertical forms. This deep history places fungi at the foundation of terrestrial life. They are elders, pioneers who prepared the ground for everything that followed. Every forest that grows today owes a debt to those ancient fungal colonists. Some fungi can survive extreme cold. In the frozen reaches of Antarctica, where temperatures plunge and life seems impossible, fungi persist. They grow slowly within rocks, in the thin films of moisture that occasionally appear. Some survive by producing natural antifreeze compounds that prevent ice crystals from forming inside their cells. Others simply endure freezing and thawing, their biology adapted to withstand conditions that would kill most organisms. Fungi have been found in glacial ice, in permafrost, in the coldest deserts on Earth. They wait, dormant, sometimes for thousands of years, ready to resume growth when conditions permit. This ability to survive freezing makes fungi incredibly resilient. They can colonize environments where almost nothing else can live. Alpine regions, polar zones, even the freezers of research stations have occasionally revealed fungal growth. Cold does not mean lifeless. It only means that life must adapt, must find ways to protect itself, to wait. Fungi are patient survivors, capable of enduring the harshest winters the planet can offer. They remind us that life is not fragile but flexible, not easily defeated but endlessly inventive. Others thrive in boiling hot springs. At the opposite extreme, fungi also inhabit some of the hottest places on Earth. In geothermal hot springs, where water temperatures approach boiling, certain fungi make their homes. They form partnerships with algae to create unusual microbial mats, or grow alone in the steaming, mineral-rich waters. These thermophilic fungi possess enzymes that remain stable at high temperatures, allowing them to function where most proteins would denature and fail. The adaptations required to survive such heat are remarkable. Cells must be reinforced, biochemical pathways adjusted, entire metabolic strategies rethought. Yet fungi have managed it, over and over, in volcanic regions around the world. Hot springs, fumaroles, heated soils near magma, fungi occupy them all. This versatility speaks to their evolutionary success. From ice to fire, from desert to rainforest, fungi have found ways to survive and even thrive. They are generalists in the truest sense, capable of bending their biology to fit nearly any environment. The extremes of temperature that would limit most life barely slow fungi down. They simply adjust and continue their quiet work. Fungi can eat plastic. One of the most hopeful discoveries in recent years is that some fungi can break down plastics, materials we designed to last forever. Researchers have found fungal species capable of digesting polyurethane, polyethylene, and other common plastics. They secrete enzymes that cleave the chemical bonds holding plastic polymers together, transforming them into simpler molecules that the fungi can absorb as food. This is not a fast process. It takes weeks or months for significant breakdown to occur. But the mere fact that it is possible opens doors. Scientists are exploring whether fungi could be used to treat plastic waste, turning garbage dumps and oceanic plastic into nutrients. Imagine landfills seeded with fungal spores, slowly digesting the refuse of decades. Imagine bioreactors where plastics are fed to fungi and broken down into harmless components. The fungi performing this work did not evolve to eat plastic. They evolved to break down tough plant materials, and by chance, their enzymes also work on synthetic polymers. It is an accident of chemistry that may become a solution to one of humanity's greatest challenges. Fungi, once again, prove their role as the planet's recyclers, capable of transforming even our most persistent mistakes. Some mushrooms smell terrible. Not all fungi attract attention with pleasant aromas. Some produce smells so foul they can be detected from meters away. The stinkhorn fungi are the most famous offenders. They emit odors of rotting flesh, decaying garbage, or sewage. The smell serves a purpose. It attracts flies and beetles, which land on the mushroom thinking they have found carrion. Instead, they find a slimy spore mass that coats their bodies. When the insects fly away, they carry spores with them, unwittingly helping the fungus reproduce. The strategy is crude but effective. By mimicking decay, stinkhorns hijack the life cycles of insects that specialize in finding dead animals. To humans, the smell is repulsive, almost unbearable. Yet to the fungus, it is simply a tool. Scent, after all, is just chemistry. What we perceive as foul is a message intended for a different audience. Stinkhorns remind us that nature's strategies are not designed for our approval. They are designed to work. And they do, filling the air with their stench, drawing in their pollinators, spreading their spores without concern for human sensibilities. Others smell sweet and pleasant. In contrast, some mushrooms release fragrances that seem designed for human enjoyment. Candy cap mushrooms, when dried, smell intensely of maple syrup, so strongly that they can perfume an entire room. Others carry hints of coconut, almond, or fruit. These sweet smells come from volatile aromatic compounds, the same chemicals found in the foods they resemble. For the fungi, these scents likely serve to attract certain insects or animals, or to deter others. For foragers, the smells are clues, helping to identify species, and sometimes indicating edibility. A mushroom that smells like maple syrup or butterscotch becomes memorable, distinctive. Chefs have learned to use these aromatic fungi in desserts, infusing creams and syrups with their natural sweetness. It is strange to think that a mushroom, something we associate with earthiness and savory flavors, can smell like candy or baked goods. Yet fungi are chemists, producing a vast array of compounds. Some happen to delight us, others repel us. The fungus itself is indifferent. It simply continues its chemical conversation with the world, a language we are only beginning to translate. Mushrooms contain powerful medicines. For millennia, humans have turned to fungi for healing. Traditional medicine systems around the world incorporate mushrooms, using them to treat infections, boost vitality, and address ailments. Modern science has validated many of these uses. Penicillin, one of the most important drugs ever discovered, comes from a fungus. It has saved countless millions of lives since its discovery in the early 20th century. Other fungi produce compounds used to lower cholesterol, suppress immune responses in organ transplant patients, and fight infections. Researchers continue to search for new medicines in fungi, screening species for bioactive molecules. Some mushrooms show promise against cancer. Others support brain health. The reishi mushroom has been used in Asia for thousands of years as a tonic, and studies suggest it may modulate the immune system. Turkey tail mushrooms contain compounds that appear to enhance immune function during cancer treatment. Fungi produce these chemicals to defend themselves against bacteria, viruses, and competitors. But many of those same chemicals can help us. Fungi are living pharmacies, their tissues packed with molecules shaped by millions of years of evolution. The challenge is discovering which species, which compounds, hold the keys to healing. Some mushrooms can make you see visions. Among the most controversial and studied fungi are those that produce psychoactive compounds. Psilocybin mushrooms, often called magic mushrooms, have been used for thousands of years in spiritual and healing ceremonies. The compound psilocybin affects serotonin receptors in the brain, altering perception, emotion, and thought. Users report profound experiences, visions, feelings of connection, and shifts in consciousness that can be deeply meaningful or unsettling. In recent years, medical research has revisited these mushrooms. Studies suggest that psilocybin, when used in controlled settings, may help treat depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addiction. The experiences people have under its influence often include confronting difficult emotions, gaining new perspectives, and feeling a sense of unity with others or the natural world. Indigenous cultures have long understood this, using mushrooms as sacraments, tools for healing and insight. Modern science is now catching up, cautiously exploring what ancient wisdom has known. The fact that a mushroom can change consciousness so dramatically is astonishing. It suggests that fungi interact with the human mind in ways we're only beginning to understand. These are not recreational curiosities, but powerful substances that deserve respect. Mushrooms are low in calories but rich in nutrients. For those seeking nourishment, mushrooms offer a surprising package. They contain very few calories, almost no fat, and yet provide protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Many species are good sources of B vitamins, which support energy metabolism and nervous system health. Some mushrooms contain vitamin D, especially if they have been exposed to sunlight. They provide selenium, potassium, copper, and other trace elements. Beyond basic nutrition, mushrooms contain bioactive compounds like beta-glucans, which may support immune function. They offer antioxidants that help protect cells from damage. Despite their delicate appearance and high water content, mushrooms punch above their weight nutritionally. They have been staple foods in many cultures, especially where meat was scarce. In modern times, they are valued by those seeking plant-based diets, offering umami richness and satisfying texture. A mushroom is more than a garnish. It is a package of nutrition shaped by the forest, a gift from the fungal kingdom to those who know how to recognize its value. Fungi help plants survive drought. In times of water scarcity, plants with mycorrhizal partners often fare better than those without. The fungal network extends the reach of roots, accessing water from deeper in the soil or from areas the plant roots cannot reach. Fungi also improve soil structure, increasing its ability to hold moisture. In return, the plant provides sugars to the fungus, maintaining the partnership even under stress. Some fungi produce compounds that help plants tolerate dehydration, essentially coaching them through difficult times. This relationship is especially important in arid environments, where every drop of water matters. Trees and grasses in deserts and dry savannas often depend on fungal partners to survive the long months between rains. As climate change brings more frequent and severe droughts to many regions, understanding and supporting these fungal partnerships becomes increasingly important. Farmers and land managers are beginning to recognize that healthy fungal communities in soil can make the difference between crops that wither and crops that endure. Fungi are not just recyclers and connectors, they are also protectors, helping plants weather the hardships of a changing world. Some fungi attack insects from the inside. There are fungi that specialize in infecting insects, growing inside their bodies and eventually killing them. Cordyceps fungi are perhaps the most famous examples. A spore lands on an insect, germinates, and penetrates the exoskeleton. Inside, the fungus spreads, consuming the insect's tissues while keeping it alive. In some cases, the fungus alters the insect's behavior, compelling it to climb to a high point where humidity is favorable for fungal growth. The insect dies, and the fungus erupts from its body, sending up a fruiting structure that releases spores to infect new hosts. This sounds like horror, and in a way it is. But it is also ecology. These fungi regulate insect populations, preventing outbreaks that might devastate plants. They are part of the balance, the checks and measures that keep ecosystems stable. The infected insects become part of the nutrient cycle, their bodies transformed into fungal growth that will eventually decompose and feed the soil. Nature's strategies are not gentle, but they are effective. Cordyceps remind us that survival in the natural world often involves relationships we might find disturbing, yet these relationships sustain the whole. Fungi can clean contaminated soil. In addition to breaking down plastics, fungi can remove heavy metals and toxins from polluted ground. Certain species absorb lead, mercury, cadmium, and other dangerous elements, concentrating them in their tissues. This process, called mycoremediation, offers a way to clean up industrial sites, old mines, and areas affected by pollution. The fungi do not destroy the metals, but they lock them away, removing them from the soil where they might harm plants and animals. Harvested mushrooms from contaminated sites are not safe to eat, but they serve a greater purpose. They transform poisoned land back into usable earth. Mycoremediation is still a developing field, but pilot projects have shown promise. Sites that would take decades to clean by conventional means can be treated more quickly and cheaply with fungi. Imagine wastelands slowly turning green again, not through machines and chemicals, but through the patient work of mycelium spreading through the dirt. Fungi are healers not only of bodies, but of the land itself, capable of absorbing humanity's mistakes and transforming them into something contained and manageable. Some mushrooms look like brains. The visual diversity of mushrooms is astonishing. Some species resemble ruffled brains, their surfaces folded and convoluted in wrinkled masses. Others look like shells, fans, cups, or corals. Jelly fungi have translucent, gelatinous bodies that wobble and shine. Earth stars open like flowers, their outer layers peeling back to reveal a spore-filled sac at the center. Bird's nest fungi resemble tiny cups containing eggs, which are actually spore packets waiting to be splashed out by raindrops. The variety of forms reflects the many ways fungi solve the problem of spore dispersal. Each shape is functional, adapted to its environment and strategy. But to human eyes, they are also art. Walking through a forest and finding these strange forms is like discovering sculptures placed by an unseen hand. They challenge our expectations, blurring the line between the living and the abstract. Mushrooms shaped like brains or antlers or starbursts remind us that nature's creativity is boundless, that evolution produces beauty, not for its own sake, but as a byproduct of solving problems. And we, as witnesses, get to marvel. Others resemble delicate lace. Some of the most intricate fungi are the fairy fan mushrooms, with caps so thin and delicate they appear translucent. Their surfaces are veined like leaves or etched with fine patterns that catch the light. These mushrooms are fragile, lasting only hours or days before withering. They grow on decaying wood, in leaf litter, places where moisture lingers. To find one is to encounter something almost impossibly delicate, a reminder that not all life is built for endurance. Some organisms exist only briefly, beautiful and ephemeral. The lace-like structures serve a function, maximizing surface area for spore release, while minimizing the material needed to build the mushroom. Efficiency expressed as elegance. Photographers seek out these mushrooms, drawn by their ethereal beauty. In the right light, they seem to glow, backlit and luminous. They are here and then gone, dissolving back into the forest, leaving no trace. These fragile mushrooms teach us about impermanence, about beauty that does not last but is no less real for its brevity. Mushrooms can be cultivated on coffee grounds. As interest in sustainability grows, people have found creative ways to grow mushrooms at home, using waste materials. Spent coffee grounds, left over from brewing, make an excellent substrate for growing oyster mushrooms. The grounds are rich in nutrients, already pasteurized by the brewing process, and otherwise destined for the trash. Inoculated with mushroom spawn, they can produce flushes of fresh mushrooms within weeks. This small-scale cultivation turns waste into food, closing a loop in the household economy. Beyond coffee grounds, mushrooms can be grown on straw, sawdust, cardboard, agricultural waste. They are not picky. Given moisture and a bit of darkness, fungi will fruit. Urban mushroom farms are popping up in basements and warehouses, transforming cities into sites of food production. Cultivating mushrooms at home connects people to the biological processes that sustain life. It is satisfying to watch mycelium colonize a jar, to see tiny pins form and swell into mushrooms you can harvest and cook. In a world that often feels disconnected from nature, growing mushrooms offers a tangible link, a reminder that life is not something distant, but something you can nurture with your own hands. Some fungi form fairy rings in fields. In meadows and lawns, you may notice mushrooms arranged in near-perfect circles, growing in rings that expand outward year after year. These are fairy rings, and folklore once attributed them to dancing fairies or trapped spirits. The truth is biological, but no less interesting. A single fungal organism grows outward from a central point, its mycelium spreading in all directions at roughly the same rate. When conditions are right, mushrooms fruit along the outer edge of this expanding circle. Over time, the ring grows larger. Some fairy rings are centuries old, their diameters spanning dozens of meters. The center of the ring often appears barren because the mycelium has exhausted nutrients there and moved outward. The grass at the ring's edge may be greener, fertilized by nutrients the fungus releases. Fairy rings are visible evidence of invisible growth, geometry drawn in living tissue. They remind us that patterns in nature often have simple explanations, but that simplicity does not diminish wonder. A circle of mushrooms in a field is still a marker of something hidden, a sign of life working patiently beneath the surface. Mushrooms can fruit in specific seasons. Many mushrooms appear only during certain times of the year, responding to temperature, moisture, and day length. Spring brings morels, pushing up through leaf litter as the ground warms. Summer sees chanterelles and bullets fruiting in forests. Autumn is the season of greatest abundance, when cooling temperatures and autumn rains trigger mass fruitings. Winter mushrooms, like velvet shanks, can even fruit in snow, taking advantage of times when competition is low. This seasonal rhythm connects fungi to the cycles of the year. Foragers learn to read the calendar, knowing when and where to search. The arrival of certain mushrooms marks the passage of time as surely as migrations of birds or the changing color of leaves. Mushrooms are part of the seasonal story, recurring characters in the forest's annual drama. Their appearance is a reminder that life follows rhythms, that nature operates on schedules written not by clocks, but by the interplay of sun, rain, and soil. To know the mushroom season is to be attuned to the land, to participate in a tradition as old as human culture itself. Some mushrooms only grow on specific trees. Fungi are often specialists, forming partnerships with particular plant species. A fungus that grows with oak may not associate with pine. Chanterelles favor certain hardwoods. Matsutake mushrooms grow with conifers in Asia and North America, so prized in Japan that they can sell for hundreds of dollars per pound. This specificity arises from coevolution. Over millions of years, fungi and their plant partners have adapted to each other, developing chemical signals and exchanges that do not work with other species. For foragers, this knowledge is essential. Find the right tree, and you may find the mushroom. This partnership also means that when forests change, when tree species disappear, or new ones are introduced, fungal communities shift as well. The fate of mushrooms is tied to the fate of their partners. Protecting forests means protecting not just trees, but the invisible networks that support them. Every tree is part of a relationship, and every mushroom is a visible sign of that bond. The forest is a community, and fungi are among its most faithful members, loyal to their partners across centuries. Fungi can break down toxic chemicals. Beyond heavy metals and plastics, fungi can degrade a wide range of toxic organic chemicals. They have been used to break down petroleum products, pesticides, herbicides, and industrial solvents. White rot fungi, which specialize in decomposing lignin in wood, produce enzymes so powerful they can break the chemical bonds in many pollutants. Researchers are exploring how these fungi might be deployed to clean up oil spills, contaminated industrial sites, and agricultural land poisoned by chemicals. The process is slow compared to mechanical or chemical cleanup methods, but it is gentler on the environment and often more thorough. Fungi do not simply move pollution elsewhere, they transform it, breaking complex toxic molecules into simpler, harmless ones. This ability suggests that fungi could play a role in addressing some of the environmental damage humanity has caused. They are, in a sense, nature's answer to our mistakes. Organisms evolved to break down the toughest organic molecules, now being enlisted to undo pollution. Quietly and without fanfare, fungi offer hope, a biological path toward healing land we have harmed. Some fungi can digest crude oil. Beyond cleaning spills, certain fungi can metabolize crude oil as a food source, breaking it down into carbon dioxide and water. In oil-contaminated environments, these fungi thrive, using hydrocarbons the way other organisms use sugars. This ability is being researched for large-scale remediation efforts, imagining a future where polluted sites are treated with fungal inoculants. The fungi would slowly consume the oil, leaving behind clean soil. It is a vision of healing through biology, using life to undo the damage caused by industrial activity. The process is slower than mechanical cleanup, but it is more complete and less disruptive. Fungi work at their own pace, patient and thorough. They don't force solutions but grow into them, spreading through the substrate, transforming molecules one by one. In a world facing environmental crises, fungi offer hope not through dramatic interventions, but through persistent, quiet work. They remind us that healing takes time, and that nature, if given the chance, often knows how to repair itself. Mushrooms have inspired architecture and design. The elegant forms of mushrooms, their caps and gills, their branching structures and organic curves have inspired architects and designers for generations. Buildings have been designed with mushroom-like canopies, their roofs spreading like caps to provide shade and shelter. Furniture makers have created chairs and lamps that echo fungal forms, celebrating the natural geometry of growth. The structural efficiency of mushrooms, how they support weight with minimal material, has informed engineering solutions. Some architects study how mycelium networks distribute stress and resources, applying these principles to building layouts and infrastructure planning. More recently, mycelium itself has been used as a building material, grown into bricks and panels that are lightweight, strong, and fully biodegradable. These innovations blur the line between growing and building, between agriculture and construction. Mushroom-inspired design is not mere aesthetics. It represents a deeper engagement with natural forms, an attempt to learn from millions of years of evolution. The shapes fungi have perfected are not arbitrary. They are solutions, refined over time, and they offer lessons for those willing to look closely. Some mushrooms can accumulate radiation. In radioactive environments, certain fungi don't just survive but actively accumulate radioactive elements in their tissues. They draw cesium, strontium, and other isotopes from the soil, concentrating them to levels far higher than the surrounding environment. This makes them useful for monitoring contamination, but also means mushrooms from polluted areas should not be eaten. The ability to accumulate heavy metals and radioactive materials is both a gift and a curse. It shows fungi's power to clean environments, but also their vulnerability to becoming toxic themselves. After the Chernobyl disaster, mushrooms and surrounding forest became radioactive, and decades later, some species still contain unsafe levels of contamination. The fungi absorb what the soil offers, indiscriminate in their uptake. This characteristic teaches us about bioaccumulation, how substances move through ecosystems, concentrating as they move up food chains. Mushrooms, as recyclers, sit at a crucial point in this cycle, gathering what the soil holds and making it visible, measurable, sometimes dangerous. Fungi can form networks spanning acres. The mycelial networks of some fungi cover areas measured not in meters, but in acres. These vast organisms sprawl beneath forests, connecting thousands of trees and millions of smaller plants. The largest known fungal organism, a honey fungus in Oregon, extends across more than 2,000 acres, making it one of the largest living things on Earth by area. Such scale is difficult to comprehend. Walking across this organism would take hours, yet it is a single individual, genetically uniform, connected by its mycelial web. These massive fungi are often very old, some estimated to be thousands of years in age. They have lived through climate changes, forest fires, human settlement. They persist, growing slowly, spreading steadily, outlasting individual trees and animal generations. To know that beneath your feet there may stretch an organism larger than you can walk across in a day is to feel humility. Scale in nature often surprises us, reminding us that our perspective is limited, that the largest and oldest lives are frequently invisible. Some mushrooms can be poisonous to touch. While most mushrooms are safe to handle, a few species can cause skin reactions even without ingestion. Some people develop rashes or irritation from touching certain mushrooms, especially if they have sensitive skin or allergies. A few species contain irritant compounds in their tissues or release spores that can cause respiratory issues if inhaled in large quantities. The most cautious foragers wear gloves when handling unknown mushrooms, avoiding the risk of contact dermatitis or allergic reactions. However, the danger from touching is generally minimal compared to eating. The truly deadly mushrooms must be ingested to cause harm. Still, the existence of skin-irritating mushrooms reminds us to approach the fungal world with respect. Not everything is safe to touch. Not everything invites interaction. Some mushrooms, like some plants and animals, have defenses that extend beyond their flesh, chemical boundaries that say, keep away. Learning to read these signs, to recognize which mushrooms demand caution, is part of developing a relationship with the natural world. Others are safe to handle, but deadly to eat. Many of the most poisonous mushrooms look and feel harmless. The death cap is smooth, dry, pleasant to touch. It does not stain your skin or cause irritation. You could carry one in your pocket all day and suffer no ill effects. But eat even a small piece, and the consequences can be fatal. This disconnect between appearance and danger makes mushroom identification crucial. You cannot judge safety by touch or smell alone. You must know the species, understand its characteristics, be certain Many mushroom poisonings occur because someone mistook a deadly species for an edible one, relying on superficial similarities. The safe handling, but deadly ingestion of some mushrooms is a reminder that danger is not always obvious. The forest does not advertise its hazards with bright warning colors or aggressive displays. Sometimes danger is quiet, wearing the guise of the ordinary, waiting to punish ignorance. This is why traditional knowledge matters, why foragers study for years before trusting themselves, why mushrooms demand both fascination and respect. Mushrooms can be cultivated indoors year-round. Unlike plants that need sunlight, many mushrooms can be grown indoors with only controlled humidity, temperature, and airflow. This makes mushroom cultivation accessible even in urban environments, in basements and spare rooms. Oyster mushrooms, shiitake, lion's mane, and others can be grown on sterilized substrates like straw, sawdust, or grain. The process requires attention to cleanliness to prevent contamination by competing molds. But once established, mushrooms can fruit reliably, providing fresh harvests every few weeks. Indoor cultivation allows year-round production, independent of weather and season. It also reduces the pressure on wild mushroom populations, which can be overharvested. Growing mushrooms at home connects people to their food in intimate ways. You watch the mycelium colonize the substrate, see the tiny pins form, witness the rapid growth of the fruiting bodies. It is a small-scale ecology under your control, a demonstration of fungal biology in action. And at the end, you have fresh, organic mushrooms, harvested steps from your kitchen, as local as food can be. Some fungi can break down explosives. Military sites and former battlefields are often contaminated with explosive residues, chemicals like TNT and RDX that poison soil and water. Certain fungi produce enzymes capable of breaking down these compounds, detoxifying them into less harmful molecules. Research has shown that white rot fungi, the same ones that decompose lignin, can also degrade explosives. This discovery opens possibilities for cleaning up contaminated military sites, turning toxic ground back into usable land. The fungi work slowly but thoroughly, their enzymes targeting the chemical bonds in the explosives and dismantling them. This bioremediation approach is safer and often more cost-effective than traditional methods like excavation and incineration. Fungi, once again, prove their worth as nature's chemists, capable of transforming substances we consider permanent hazards. They are allies in addressing the legacies of human conflict and industry, offering tools to heal landscapes scarred by war and pollution. In their patient work, there's a kind of optimism, a suggestion that even our worst mistakes can eventually be undone. Mushrooms can fruit after decades of dormancy. Some fungi can remain dormant in soil or wood for years, even decades, waiting for the right conditions to fruit. When those conditions finally arrive, perhaps after a fire, a flood, or a change in climate, the long silent mycelium suddenly produces mushrooms. Foragers sometimes find fruiting events in areas where those species had not been seen for generations. The fungi were there all along, invisible, biding their time. This patience is remarkable. The mycelium maintains itself at a minimal level, conserving energy, surviving on sparse resources. It does not give up, it waits. And when the moment comes, it responds, fruiting prolifically, releasing spores, ensuring the next generation. This strategy shows that timing matters as much as presence. Being in the right place is not enough. You must also wait for the right time. Fungi understand this deeply. They do not rush, they endure. And when opportunity arrives, they seize it with sudden vigor. Their dormancy is not inactivity, but preparation, a long gathering of resources and readiness. Some mushrooms can glow different colors. While most bioluminescent mushrooms emit green or blue-green light, there's variation in hue and intensity across species. Some glow bright enough to read by, while others produce only the faintest luminescence, detectable only in total darkness. The color depends on the specific luciferin molecules in the environment within the mushroom's tissues. These differences create a spectrum of fungal light, from pale, ghostly glows to brighter, more vibrant displays. Researchers are studying these variations to understand the mechanisms of bioluminescence and to explore potential applications. Could fungal genes be used to create glowing plants for street lighting? Could we develop new biological sensors based on fungal luminescence? The questions multiply as knowledge deepens. Meanwhile, in forests around the world, mushrooms continue their ancient practice of glowing in the dark, indifferent to human curiosity, lighting themselves for reasons we are still working to fully understand. Their light is both answer and mystery, a phenomenon explained by chemistry yet still capable of inspiring wonder. Fungi can alter the taste of soil. Through their metabolic processes, fungi change not only soil chemistry but also its taste. In vineyards and agricultural settings, the presence of certain fungi can influence the flavor profiles of crops, contributing to what is called terroir. The fungi in soil affect nutrient availability, pH, and microbial communities, all of which influence how plants grow and what compounds they produce. Grapes grown in soil with rich fungal communities may develop different flavor notes than those grown in fungal-poor soil. This subtle influence extends to vegetables, herbs, and other crops. The taste of food is shaped not only by variety and cultivation practices, but also by the invisible organisms in the soil. Fungi are silent partners in agriculture, co-creators of flavor. They remind us that food is not produced in isolation, but emerges from complex interactions between plants, soil, and microbes. To taste a tomato or a glass of wine is to taste the ecosystem, the sum of countless invisible contributions, including the patient work of fungi. Some mushrooms can survive drought for years. Desert fungi and those in other arid environments can endure years without water, their mycelium desiccated and seemingly lifeless. When rain finally comes, they rehydrate and resume growth within hours or days. This ability to survive extreme drought is enabled by protective compounds like trehalose, a sugar that stabilizes cell membranes during drying. The mycelium essentially enters suspended animation, waiting. This strategy allows fungi to inhabit deserts, dry grasslands, and other environments where water is sporadic. They are opportunists, ready to capitalize on brief wet periods. When the desert blooms after rain, fungi fruit alongside wildflowers, adding their spores to the burst of life. The drought tolerance of fungi is yet another example of their adaptability. They bend to circumstances without breaking, adjusting their biology to survive whatever the environment throws at them. In a world facing increasing droughts and climate instability, fungi's resilience offers both lessons and hope. They show that survival is possible even when conditions are harsh, that patience and adaptation can outlast adversity. Mushrooms can be found in caves, deep underground, in caves where sunlight never reaches, fungi still thrive. They grow on bat guano, decaying organic matter carried in by water, and even on the cave walls themselves. These cave fungi often have pale colors, lacking the pigments that protect against sunlight. They are adapted to complete darkness, constant humidity, and stable temperatures. Some form symbioses with cave-dwelling insects or other organisms. Cave fungi play important roles in cave ecosystems, recycling nutrients and supporting food webs that depend on energy brought in from the surface. Explorers and scientists who venture into deep caves sometimes find mushrooms fruiting in the perpetual night, ghostly white or translucent, strange and beautiful. These fungi remind us that life is not dependent on sunlight alone. Even in the deepest darkness, in places we might consider barren, fungi find ways to live. They are testament to life's persistence, its ability to colonize every niche, to find sustenance in the most unlikely places. Some fungi can communicate through electrical pulses. Recent research has detected electrical activity in fungal mycelium, pulses that travel through the network, like signals in nerves. These pulses vary in frequency and pattern, sometimes in response to stimuli like food sources or damage to the mycelium. While we don't know if this constitutes communication in the way we understand it, the signals suggest that fungi process information and coordinate activity across their networks. Some scientists have compared these pulses to a primitive language, with different patterns potentially encoding different messages. Whether fungi are truly communicating or simply responding to local conditions is still debated. But the discovery of electrical activity adds another layer to our understanding of fungal intelligence. Mycelium is not a passive network, but an active, responsive system, constantly adjusting to its environment. The forest floor hums with these signals, invisible conversations or reactions, a dialogue conducted in electricity, flowing through threads thinner than hair, coordinating the work of decomposition and symbiosis. Mushrooms can help restore degraded land. In areas damaged by mining, agriculture, or development, fungi can be part of restoration efforts. By inoculating soil with beneficial mycorrhizal fungi, land managers help plants establish more quickly and survive harsh conditions. The fungi improve soil structure, increase water retention, and provide nutrients, giving plants a better start. Over time, the fungal networks help build soil organic matter, gradually transforming barren ground into fertile earth. Reforestation projects increasingly include fungal inoculation as standard practice, recognizing that trees and fungi are partners. Planting trees without their fungal allies often leads to poor survival rates. Together, trees and fungi can reclaim land, turning scars into forests. This approach, working with natural processes rather than against them, offers hope for healing landscapes damaged by human activity. Fungi are not just survivors. They are healers, capable of nurturing recovery in places that seem beyond hope. Their presence accelerates succession, the natural process by which ecosystems rebuild themselves. With fungi as allies, restoration becomes faster and more resilient. Some mushrooms are prized as delicacies. Truffles, growing underground in symbiosis with tree roots, are among the most expensive foods in the world. A single, large white truffle can sell for thousands of dollars. Their intense aroma and complex flavor make them treasured by chefs and gourmets. Matsutake mushrooms in Japan, morels in Europe and North America, porcini throughout the Northern Hemisphere, all command high prices and devoted followings. These mushrooms cannot be easily cultivated, so they must be foraged from wild sources, adding to their value and mystique. The hunt for prized mushrooms is a seasonal ritual, bringing foragers into forests with dogs or pigs trained to detect truffles, or simply with keen eyes and knowledge of where rare species grow. The high value of these mushrooms reflects their scarcity, flavor, and cultural importance. They are luxury items, but also connections to tradition and place. To eat a truffle or a perfectly cooked morel is to taste the forest, to participate in an economy that values wildness and rarity. These mushrooms remind us that not all valuable things can be manufactured or controlled. Fungi can survive in acidic environments. Some fungi thrive in conditions so acidic they would dissolve metal or burn skin. Acidophilic fungi live in acid mine drainage, sulfurous hot springs, and acidic bogs, places where pH can drop below 3. They have adapted cell membranes and metabolic processes that function, despite the harsh chemistry. These fungi play important roles in breaking down organic matter in acidic environments, and can even help neutralize acidity over time by absorbing and transforming acidic compounds. Their presence in extreme pH environments shows again fungi's incredible range of tolerance, from alkaline to acidic, from hot to cold, from wet to dry. Fungi have found ways to survive and even prosper. They are generalists in the grandest sense, occupying almost every imaginable niche on the planet. This adaptability is key to their ecological importance. No matter the conditions, fungi are there, performing their roles, keeping ecosystems functioning. They are the universal workers, present and active in every environment that supports life. Some mushrooms can be preserved in vinegar. Pickling mushrooms is an ancient preservation method, steeping them in vinegar with herbs and spices. The acidity of the vinegar prevents spoilage, and the mushrooms absorb flavors from the brine, becoming tangy, savory additions to meals. Pickled mushrooms can last for months or even years in sealed jars, providing shelf-stable food that requires no refrigeration. In Eastern Europe and Asia, pickled mushrooms are traditional foods, prepared in autumn when mushrooms are abundant and enjoyed throughout the year. The pickling process also makes some mushrooms safer to eat, as the acidity can denature certain proteins and reduce mild toxins. The practice of pickling connects us to generations of foragers and cooks who learned to preserve the harvest, to extend the bounty of the forest through the lean months. A jar of pickled mushrooms is a compact library of knowledge. Techniques passed down, flavors preserved, a link between seasons and between past and present. Mushrooms can grow in clusters of hundreds. Some mushrooms fruit in immense clusters, with hundreds of individual caps emerging from a single point on a log or stump. Honey mushrooms are famous for this, covering entire surfaces in golden brown masses. These clusters are all connected to the same mycelial network underground, clones of one another, genetically identical. The sheer abundance of such fruitings is overwhelming, a sudden explosion of reproductive effort. The strategy is to saturate the environment with spores, overwhelming chance, and ensuring that at least some spores find suitable places to grow. For foragers, finding a large cluster can be a windfall, enough mushrooms to fill baskets and share with friends. But these clusters are also beautiful, sculptural, the repetition of forms creating complex patterns. The individual caps may be simple, but together they form something intricate and mesmerizing. clustered mushrooms remind us that abundance is part of nature's strategy, that life often succeeds not through rarity, but through sheer overwhelming presence. Some fungi can dissolve bones. Over long periods, certain fungi can break down bone, digesting the collagen and even extracting minerals. In forensic science, this is sometimes observed in buried remains, where fungal colonization contributes to decomposition. The process is slow, taking years or decades, but it shows fungi's ability to recycle even the hardest tissues. Bone is primarily mineral, calcium phosphate, which is difficult to break down, but fungi can secrete acids and enzymes that gradually dissolve it. This ability is crucial in ecosystems, ensuring that even bones eventually return to the soil, their nutrients released for new life. Without fungi and bacteria, skeletons would accumulate, locking away minerals. Instead, fungi close the loop, completing the cycle of life and death. It is not a pleasant image, perhaps, but it is essential. Decomposition is not about destruction, but transformation, about returning everything to the pool of available resources, maintaining the flow that sustains all living things. Mushrooms can appear in perfect circles. Fairy rings are perhaps the most perfect natural circles you will find. Mushrooms arranged with such precision they seem drawn by compass. These rings have inspired folklore for centuries, attributed to fairies, witches, or supernatural forces. The truth, that they are simply the visible edge of an expanding fungal colony, does not diminish their beauty. As mycelium grows outward from a central point, it exhausts nutrients at the center and fruits at the periphery. The result is a circle that grows larger each year, sometimes persisting for decades. Some fairy rings are known to be hundreds of years old, passed down through local memory as landmarks. To step inside a fairy ring is to stand within the bounds of a single organism, surrounded by its fruiting bodies. The circle is both real and symbolic, a natural mandala, a sign of hidden growth, a reminder that the forest is full of patterns waiting to be noticed. Some mushrooms can be used to start fires. In traditional fire-starting techniques, certain bracket fungi, particularly those with soft, fibrous interiors, were used as tinder. When dried, they catch sparks easily and smolder slowly, giving time to add more fuel and coax the ember into flame. The punk or amadou from horsehoof fungus and similar species was carried by travelers and campers, an essential survival tool. The fungal tissue is absorbent and fibrous, perfect for catching and holding a spark from flint or steel. In some cultures, this fire-starting fungus was traded and valued. Knowledge of which fungi made the best tinder was passed down carefully. Even today, bushcraft enthusiasts seek out these fungi, practicing ancient skills. The use of mushrooms to make fire is a reminder of how intimately humans have known fungi, how we have depended on them not just for food and medicine, but for warmth and light, for the most basic needs of survival. Fungi have been our partners in countless ways, many now forgotten, but once essential. Fungi can help seeds germinate. Some plant seeds germinate more successfully when fungi are present in the soil. The fungi may break down chemical inhibitors in the seed coat, or they may provide nutrients that support early growth. Certain seeds will not germinate at all without specific fungal partners, their evolution so intertwined that neither can succeed alone. This dependence highlights the deep connections between plants and fungi, relationships forged over millions of years. In restoration ecology, understanding these relationships is critical. Attempting to re-establish plant populations without ensuring their fungal partners are present often fails. Seeds are sown but do not sprout, or seedlings emerge but quickly die. Including fungi in restoration plans improves success rates dramatically. Fungi are not optional extras but necessary collaborators. They are woven into the life cycles of many plants so thoroughly that separating them is impossible. The seed in the soil is not alone. It is surrounded by potential partners, and its fate depends on finding them. Some mushrooms can fruit from frozen ground. In late autumn and even winter, certain mushrooms continue to fruit despite freezing temperatures. Velvet shank mushrooms can be found on dead wood even when snow covers the ground, their caps thawing and resuming spore release when temperatures rise slightly during the day. These cold-tolerant mushrooms have adapted to fill a niche when competition is low. Few other organisms are active in the depths of winter, so these fungi can fruit without being eaten or outcompeted. Their anti-freeze compounds protect their cells, allowing them to function at temperatures that would kill most mushrooms. Finding a mushroom in winter feels like a small miracle, a sign that life persists even when the world seems dormant. These hardy fungi remind us that winter is not lifeless, but simply quieter, that even in the coldest months, processes continue, organisms survive, and the cycles of growth and decay do not entirely stop, only slow. Mushrooms can be woven into fabric. The leathery, fibrous tissue of some large bracket fungi can be processed into a material resembling felt or leather. Traditional craftspeople have used amadou, the prepared inner layer of horse hoof fungus, to make hats, pouches, and other items. The material is soft, durable, and water-resistant when treated properly. While not common today, this use of fungi shows the creativity with which humans have utilized natural materials. Everything the forest offers can be a resource if you know how to work with it. Modern artists and designers are revisiting these techniques, exploring fungi as sustainable materials. Mycelium leather, as discussed earlier, is one direction. But even traditional uses of fruiting bodies are being rediscovered, appreciated for their low environmental impact and connection to heritage crafts. To wear something made from mushrooms is to carry a piece of the forest, to blur the line between clothing and ecology, to make visible our dependence on the natural world. Some fungi can change sex. Unlike animals with fixed sexes, many fungi can change their mating type or exist in multiple states depending on environmental conditions. Fungal genetics allow for flexibility that seems strange to us, but makes perfect sense for organisms that need to maximize reproductive opportunities. A mycelium may switch strategies, reproducing asexually when conditions are stable, and sexually when genetic diversity would be advantageous. This fluidity is another aspect of fungal adaptability. They are not locked into rigid categories, but shift as needed, pragmatic and responsive. The concept of sex in fungi is already so different from ours that adding changeability simply underscores how alien their biology is. They follow rules we are still learning to understand, operating in ways that challenge our assumptions about life. Fungi remind us that the strategies life uses are diverse, that our human experience is just one of countless ways to organize reproduction, identity, and survival. Mushrooms can be found at high altitudes, on mountain slopes above the tree line, where harsh winds, intense sun, and freezing temperatures dominate, fungi still grow. Alpine mushrooms are often small and tough, adapted to short-growing seasons and extreme conditions. Some form partnerships with alpine plants, helping them survive nutrient-poor soils. Others decompose the sparse organic matter that accumulates in rocky crevices. These high-altitude fungi are part of fragile ecosystems, slow-growing and easily disrupted. Climate change is pushing some species higher, while others have nowhere left to go. Studying alpine fungi helps scientists understand how organisms adapt to extremes and how they might respond to warming temperatures. The presence of mushrooms on cold peaks and windy ridges shows once more that fungi are everywhere. That altitude is no barrier, that wherever plants and organic matter exist, fungi will follow. They are mountaineers, silent climbers, occupying the heights without fanfare, doing their essential work in conditions that seem impossibly hostile. Some mushrooms smell like rotting fish. Not content with smelling like garlic or licorice, a few mushrooms emit odors reminiscent of decaying fish. The scent is strong and off-putting to humans, but it serves the same purpose as the stinkhorn's carrion smell, attracting flies and beetles that disperse spores. The mushrooms do not care about human preferences. They have evolved to communicate with insects, and the scent works. Flies arrive, investigate, and leave carrying spores. The strategy is effective even if unpleasant. These foul-smelling mushrooms are reminders that nature's designs are not made for our approval. Functionality comes first, and if that means a smell we find revolting, so be it. The mushroom persists, successful in its own terms, indifferent to human judgment. Walking through a forest and catching a whiff of rotting fish from a mushroom is jarring, a moment where the forest asserts its alienness, where we are reminded that we are visitors in a world built by and for other organisms. And so we come to the end of this long, gentle exploration of mushrooms. We've wandered through forests and deserts, touched on science and history, marveled at the strange and the familiar. Mushrooms, those quiet, fruiting bodies of vast, hidden networks, have shown us their many faces. They are recyclers and builders, poisoners and healers, food and medicine, mystery and science. They glow in the dark, survive in space, digest plastic and oil, communicate through chemistry and perhaps even electricity. They partner with trees and insects and orchids, shape forests and soils, influence climate and taste and health. They are everywhere, ancient and essential, working patiently beneath our feet, connecting, transforming, enduring. If you have found peace in these facts, in the slow unfolding of fungal wonders, then perhaps you will return to this place again, or seek out mushrooms in your own life, in forests and fields, in your kitchen, in your imagination. They are waiting, as they have always waited, to be noticed, appreciated, understood a little more deeply. For now, let the knowledge settle. Let the images of glowing mushrooms, fairy rings, vast mycelial webs, and patient decomposition fade gently into rest. The world of mushrooms will still be there tomorrow, growing silently, doing its work, holding its mysteries. You can return any time. Sleep well, if sleep comes. And if you remain awake, simply rest in the knowledge that the earth beneath you is alive, threaded with invisible networks, humming with quiet activity, supported by fungi that have been here far longer than we have and will likely remain long after. The mushrooms, in their silent way, are always present. They ask nothing. They simply grow, connect, recycle, and endure. Good night. Some mushrooms can be dried and stored for years. While fresh mushrooms are delicate and perishable, drying transforms them into shelf-stable ingredients that can last for years. The drying process concentrates flavors, sometimes intensifying umami or bringing out hidden sweetness. Dried porcini, shiitake, and morels are staples in kitchens around the world, valued for the depth they add to soups, sauces, and stews. Rehydrated in warm water, they return nearly to their original texture, releasing their flavors into the liquid. Drying is one of humanity's oldest preservation methods, and it works beautifully with mushrooms. It allows the harvest of one season to nourish people through the next, turning abundance into security. For foragers, drying is a way to capture the forest's gifts and carry them home. A jar of dried mushrooms on a shelf holds not just food but memory, the smell of woods after rain, the quiet satisfaction of finding something rare. In many cultures, dried mushrooms are traded, gifted, treasured. They connect people across distances, a taste of one forest shared in another place entirely. The practice of drying mushrooms is a conversation across time, a way to preserve the ephemeral and make it last. Mushrooms have been found in ancient tombs. Archaeologists excavating burial sites have discovered dried mushrooms placed alongside the dead, suggesting that fungi held significance for ancient peoples. In some cases, these appear to be food offerings for the afterlife. In others, they may have been medicinal or spiritual tools, items deemed important enough to accompany the deceased into whatever came next. Fungi appear in ancient art as well, carved into stone, painted on pottery, woven into textiles. The famous Iceman, a mummy preserved in alpine ice for over 5,000 years, carried dried mushrooms in his kit. Analysis suggests they may have been medicinal, perhaps used to treat parasites or wounds. These discoveries tell us that humans have relied on mushrooms for far longer than written history records. Our ancestors knew them intimately, understood their uses, valued them enough to carry them on journeys and into graves. Mushrooms are part of the human story, companions through millennia. Their importance encoded not in words, but in the quiet evidence of objects and images left behind. Some fungi can produce antibiotics. The discovery of penicillin opened the antibiotic age, but it was not the only antibiotic produced by fungi. Many species generate compounds that kill or inhibit bacteria, part of their strategy for surviving in competitive environments. These natural antibiotics have been studied, synthesized, and turned into medicines. Cephalosporins, another important class of antibiotics, were originally derived from a fungus found in sewage in Sardinia. Fungi continue to be screened for new antibiotics, especially as bacteria develop resistance to existing drugs. The arms race between microbes, bacteria evolving, defenses, and fungi evolving new attacks has been going on for millions of years. We benefit from this ancient conflict, harvesting the chemical weapons fungi developed for their own survival. Each new antibiotic discovered represents a small victory, borrowed from the fungal arsenal. But it also reminds us that we are participants in a much larger story, one where microscopic organisms battle endlessly, and where human medicine is often just the application of strategies nature invented long ago. Fungi play a role in making cheese. Many beloved cheeses owe their character to fungi. Blue cheeses like Roquefort and Gorgonzola are veined with Penicillium roqueforti, a mold that grows inside the cheese, reducing the distinctive blue-green color and sharp, tangy flavor. Brie and camembert are ripened with Penicillium camemberti, which forms the white rind and softens the interior, creating the creamy texture. These fungi are deliberately introduced during cheesemaking, carefully controlled to achieve the desired result. Without them, these cheeses would not exist. The fungal growth is not spoilage but transformation, turning simple curds into complex, flavorful products. Cheesemakers are, in a sense, fungal cultivators, managing invisible organisms to create taste and texture. The relationship between humans and fungi in food production is ancient and essential. We have learned to work with fungi, to invite them into our processes, to trust their transformations. Every bite of blue cheese is a collaboration, human craft and fungal biology working together to create something neither could produce alone. Some mushrooms can move nutrients upward in soil, while fungi are often thought of as recyclers breaking things down. They also move nutrients upward through soil profiles. Mycelium can transport minerals from deep layers to the surface, making them available to shallow-rooted plants. This hydraulic lift of nutrients is especially important in forests, where nutrients tend to leach downward with rainfall. Fungi act as pumps, counteracting this loss and maintaining soil fertility. They can also move nutrients laterally, from nutrient-rich patches to areas of scarcity, evening out the distribution of resources across the forest floor. This movement is not random, but driven by the needs of the fungal network and its plant partners. Where plants are growing vigorously and providing sugars, fungi may deliver more nutrients. The mycelium is constantly adjusting, responding to chemical signals, optimizing its network. It is infrastructure alive and responsive, a system that maintains itself without central control. The soil is not a static reservoir but a dynamic space, animated by fungal activity, a space where nutrients flow like water through invisible channels. Fungi help forests recover after fire. After a forest fire, the landscape appears devastated, but beneath the ash, fungal networks often survive. Their mycelium, insulated by soil, endures the heat and begins growing again as soon as conditions allow. These fungi are among the first organisms to start rebuilding the ecosystem. They stabilize soil, preventing erosion. They help new seedlings establish by forming mycorrhizal partnerships. Some fungi even fruit prolifically after fires. Their mushrooms appear in great numbers on the blackened ground. Morels are famous for this, sometimes carpeting burned areas in the spring following a fire. These post-fire fungi play a crucial role in succession, the process by which ecosystems recover and change over time. They accelerate healing, turning ash and charred wood into nutrients that new growth can use. Fire is not an ending but a transformation, and fungi are agents of that transformation. They remind us that destruction can lead to renewal, that even in scorched landscapes, life is already working to return. Some mushrooms taste bitter as a defense. Bitterness in mushrooms is often a warning. Many species produce bitter compounds to deter animals from eating them. These chemicals are not always poisonous, but they make the mushroom unpalatable. A deer or squirrel that takes a bite of a bitter mushroom will likely spit it out and remember to avoid that species in the future. For the mushroom, bitterness is a successful defense without the metabolic cost of producing deadly toxins. For foragers, bitterness is a signal to be cautious. While not all bitter mushrooms are poisonous, the taste suggests the presence of defensive chemicals that may cause digestive upset. Learning to read these signals, To taste carefully and spit out what tastes wrong is part of the foraging tradition. Bitterness is a language, a chemical communication between mushroom and potential predator. It says, "Not for you." In a world without words, taste is a conversation, and fungi have learned to speak clearly. Others have umami, the savory taste. At the opposite end of the flavor spectrum, many mushrooms are rich in umami, the savory taste that makes food satisfying and delicious. Umami comes from glutamates and nucleotides, compounds abundant in mushrooms. Shiitake, dried porcini, and truffles are especially prized for their intense umami character. This savory richness is why mushrooms work so well in broths, sauces, and as meat substitutes. They provide depth and complexity, rounding out flavors and making dishes feel complete. The umami in mushrooms is not an accident. These compounds are part of the mushroom's biology, involved in protein metabolism and cell function. But to human taste buds, they register as deliciousness. Cooks in Asia have known this for centuries, using mushrooms and other umami-rich ingredients to build flavor without meat. In recent decades, Western cuisine has rediscovered this, embracing mushrooms as essential ingredients. When you taste the savory depth of a mushroom, you are tasting chemistry that evolved for one purpose, but delights us for entirely different reasons. Mushrooms can survive being frozen and thawed. Many mushrooms tolerate freezing remarkably well. In nature, mushrooms that fruit in autumn may experience early frosts, their tissues freezing overnight and thawing during the day. Some species have adapted to continue functioning through these cycles, producing compounds that protect their cells from ice damage. For preservation, mushrooms can be frozen after cooking, maintaining much of their flavor and texture for months. This makes them convenient, allowing cooks to keep a supply on hand year-round. The resilience to freezing is another example of fungal toughness. While mushrooms appear delicate, their biology is robust, capable of withstanding stresses that would destroy more fragile organisms. This adaptability has allowed fungi to colonize cold environments and to survive seasonal extremes. From frozen tundra to kitchen freezers, mushrooms endure. They bend but do not break, adapting to circumstances, waiting for better conditions, and resuming their life when the time is right. Flexibility, it seems, is a fundamental trait of the fungal kingdom. Some fungi form crusts on rocks and bark. Not all fungi produce recognizable mushrooms. Some grow as thin crusts spreading across rock faces, tree bark, or fallen logs. These crust fungi, or resupinate fungi, lie flat against their substrate, their spore-bearing surfaces exposed to the air. They may be smooth, warty, or covered in tiny pores. Many are inconspicuous, easily overlooked, but they play important roles in decomposition and nutrient cycling. Crust fungi are specialists in breaking down tough materials, secreting enzymes that slowly digest wood and other organic matter. Over time, they transform solid substrates into crumbling fragments. Their flat growth form maximizes contact with the food source, allowing efficient absorption of nutrients. While they lack the visual drama of a towering mushroom, crust fungi are no less remarkable. They are patient dismantlers, working at the interface between life and decay, turning the old into the new. To notice them is to see the forest at a finer scale, to recognize that decomposition happens everywhere, in countless forms, most of them quiet and unnoticed. Mushrooms can change soil chemistry. As fungi grow and decompose organic matter, They alter the chemistry of the soil around them. They release organic acids that can change pH, making soil more acidic or, in some cases, more alkaline. They mobilize nutrients locked in minerals, making them available to plants. They produce enzymes that break down complex molecules, releasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements. This biochemical activity creates microhabitats within the soil, zones with different properties that support different communities of microbes and plants. Fungi are not passive residents of the soil. They are active agents, constantly reshaping their environment. The soil beneath a mushroom is different from the soil a few centimeters away. This variation creates diversity, allowing more species to coexist. Fungi, by their very presence and activity, increase the complexity of ecosystems. They are architects not just of physical structures, but of chemical landscapes, invisible gradients and patches that structure the living world at scales too small for us to see without instruments. Some mushrooms are edible only when young. Timing matters when foraging mushrooms. Some species that are delicious when young become tough, bitter, or even mildly toxic as they age. Shaggy mane mushrooms, also called inky caps, are excellent when freshly emerged. Their white caps crisp and mild, but within hours they begin to auto-digest, their gills dissolving into black liquid as part of their spore dispersal strategy. By the time they are old, they are inedible, a puddle of ink. Giant puffballs are prized when their interiors are pure white and firm, but once the flesh starts to yellow and turn powdery with spores, they are no longer good to eat. Foragers learn to recognize mushrooms at their prime, understanding the narrow window when they are best. This urgency adds to the excitement of foraging. You must be there at the right time, attentive to the rhythms of fungal growth. The mushrooms do not wait. They emerge, mature, and decline on their own schedule. To catch them at their peak is to participate in the precise timing of nature, to align yourself with the life cycle of the forest. Others remain edible for weeks. In contrast, some mushrooms are remarkably durable. Bracket fungi, the woody shelves that grow on trees, can persist for months or even years. While not typically eaten due to their tough texture, some species like chicken of the woods are tender and edible when young, then gradually harden as they age. Dried mushrooms, of course, can remain edible indefinitely if stored properly. Even some fresh mushrooms, like mature porcini or chanterelles, can stay firm and flavorful for a week or more, if kept cool and dry. This variability reflects different fungal strategies. Some mushrooms root quickly, release spores, and disintegrate, minimizing the time they are exposed to predators and weather. Others invest in durability, producing tougher tissues that resist decay and allow spores to be released over extended periods. Each approach has advantages: speed versus endurance, quantity versus quality. Fungi have explored both paths, and many others, diversifying strategies across thousands of species. Fungi can form partnerships with algae. Lichens, those colorful crusts and frills that cover rocks and tree trunks, are not single organisms, but partnerships between fungi and algae, or cyanobacteria. The fungus provides structure and protection, shielding the photosynthetic partner from drying out and intense light. The algae, or cyanobacteria, produce sugars through photosynthesis, feeding the fungus. Together, they can survive in places neither could inhabit alone: deserts, mountaintops, polar regions. lichens are among the toughest organisms on Earth, capable of withstanding extreme temperatures, desiccation, and radiation. They grow incredibly slowly, some expanding less than a millimeter per year, but they can live for centuries or even millennia. Lichens are pioneers, colonizing bare rock and beginning the process of soil formation. They're also indicators of air quality, sensitive to pollution, and declining in contaminated areas. These partnerships show that cooperation is a powerful evolutionary strategy. By joining forces, fungi and algae create something greater than either alone, a merged organism that thrives on the edges of the possible. Some fungi can digest hair and feathers. Keratin, the protein that makes up hair, feathers, nails, and horns, is notoriously difficult to break down, yet some fungi specialize in digesting it. These keratinophilic fungi are found in soil, where they decompose the keratin-rich remains of dead animals. They produce enzymes called keratinases that cleave the tough protein molecules, unlocking nutrients that would otherwise remain trapped. This ability makes them important recyclers in ecosystems, ensuring that even the hardest animal tissues eventually return to the soil. Some of these fungi can also infect living animals, causing skin and nail infections. Athlete's foot and ringworm are caused by keratinophilic fungi that have learned to colonize living hosts. It is a reminder that the line between decomposer and pathogen is thin. Fungi are opportunists, adapted to exploit whatever resources are available. Whether breaking down a feather on the ground or infecting skin, they are simply doing what they evolved to do. From a fungal perspective, keratin is keratin, and any source is an opportunity. Mushrooms can appear in geometric spirals. Sometimes mushrooms fruit in spiral patterns, arcs that curve across the ground in graceful sweeps. These spirals emerge from the way mycelium grows and responds to its environment. Uneven terrain, variations in moisture or nutrients, even the presence of obstacles can cause the expanding mycelial front to curve rather than grow in a perfect circle. The result is a spiral or arc of mushrooms, a pattern that seems almost intentional. Spirals appear throughout nature, in shells, galaxies, and weather systems, expressions of mathematical principles that govern growth and flow. To find mushrooms arranged in a spiral is to encounter one more instance of this universal pattern, a reminder that the same rules apply at every scale. The mycelium did not plan the spiral. It simply grew, responding to local conditions, and the spiral emerged as a consequence. Beauty arises from process, from simple rules iterated over time. The mushrooms mark the path of invisible growth, a trail left by life moving through space. Some fungi can sense and respond to light. Though fungi lack eyes and nervous systems, they can detect light and respond to it. Many mushrooms grow toward light sources, ensuring that their caps are positioned to release spores into air currents. Photoreceptor proteins in fungal cells sense wavelengths of light and trigger growth responses. This allows fungi to orient themselves, to know up from down, to position their fruiting bodies for maximum spore dispersal. Some fungi also use light cues to regulate their life cycles, timing spore release or fruiting to coincide with favorable conditions. The ability to sense light is a form of awareness, a way for fungi to interact with their environment. They may not see, but they perceive. They gather information and act on it, adjusting their growth in response to the world around them. This responsiveness is a kind of intelligence, different from ours but effective. Fungi are not passive. They are active participants in their own survival, constantly sensing, adjusting, optimizing. The forest is full of these quiet decisions, invisible choices that shape the living world. Mushrooms can be used to make natural dyes. Before synthetic dyes, people extracted colors from the natural world, and mushrooms were important sources. Different species yield different hues. Some produce yellows and golds, others browns and greens, a few even purples and blues. The dyer's polypore, a bracket fungus, gives rich golden and orange tones. Certain mushrooms produce colors that change depending on the mordant used, the chemical that helps fix the dye to fabric. Dyeing with mushrooms is an art, requiring knowledge of species, timing, and technique. The colors are often subtle, earthy, with variations that give each batch its own character. In recent years, there's been a revival of interest in natural dyes, driven by concerns about synthetic dyes and a desire for sustainable practices. Mushroom dyes are renewable, biodegradable, and connect the dyer to the landscape in intimate ways. To wear clothing dyed with mushrooms is to carry the forest with you, its colors woven into the fabric. It is a different kind of relationship with materials, one that acknowledges sources and celebrates the diversity of nature. Some fungi create intricate underground mazes. When scientists study mycelium under microscopes or with imaging technology, they discover astonishing complexity. The threads branch and merge, forming networks that resemble mazes or circuit boards. These networks are not random but structured, optimized for efficiency. Mycelium finds the shortest paths between resources, reroutes around obstacles, and allocates growth to the most productive areas. Researchers have compared fungal networks to man-made systems, finding that they solve similar problems of distribution and communication. Some experiments have even shown that mycelium can replicate the layout of efficient transportation networks, like railway systems, when given a similar set of constraints. The fungus is not thinking in any human sense, but it is solving problems, using simple rules to create complex, functional structures. These underground mazes are invisible cities bustling with activity, resources flowing along highways of fungal tissue. To realize that such sophistication exists beneath every step is humbling. The soil is not empty space, but a realm of hidden architecture. Mushrooms can be indicators of forest health. The diversity and abundance of mushrooms in a forest can tell you much about the ecosystem's condition. Healthy forests with diverse plant communities and intact soils support rich fungal communities. When forests are degraded by logging, pollution, or invasive species, fungal diversity often declines. Certain mushrooms appear only in old-growth forests, indicators of ecological continuity and complexity. Others are among the first to colonize disturbed areas, pioneers that help ecosystems recover. Mycologists and conservationists use mushrooms as tools, surveying them to assess forest health and track changes over time. A forest with many mushroom species is likely thriving. One with few may be stressed. Mushrooms are visible signs of invisible health, markers of the underground networks and nutrient cycles that sustain the forest. Protecting mushrooms means protecting their habitats, the trees they partner with, the soils they inhabit. Conservation efforts that focus only on plants and animals miss a crucial part of the story. Fungi are part of the web of life. and their well-being is inseparable from the well-being of the whole. Some mushrooms can last for only a few hours. Ephemeral mushrooms appear and vanish with startling speed. Certain ink caps emerge at dawn, release their spores by midday, and dissolve into liquid by evening. These brief lives are strategies for avoiding predators and unfavorable weather. The mushroom accomplishes its purpose, spore dispersal, and then disappears. For mycologists and foragers, this creates a sense of urgency. You must be in the right place at the right time, or you will miss them entirely. The transience of these mushrooms is poignant. They are here and then gone, their existence measured in hours. Yet within that brief span, they complete their life cycle, contribute to the ecosystem, and prepare the way for the next generation. They remind us that duration is not the measure of a life's value. Even the briefest existence has meaning, purpose, connection. These fleeting mushrooms teach us about impermanence, about beauty that does not need to last to be real, about the preciousness of moments. Others can persist for years. At the other extreme, some mushrooms endure for years. Perennial bracket fungi add new layers of growth each season, building thick, woody structures that can weigh many pounds. These long-lived mushrooms provide habitat for insects, shelter for small animals, and slowly recycle the trees they grow on. Some artists' conch mushrooms, which grow on birch and beech trees, can live for decades, accumulating rings like tree trunks. Over the years, they release billions of spores, patiently fulfilling their reproductive role. The longevity of these mushrooms reflects a different strategy. Instead of the quick burst of ephemeral species, perennial fungi invest in durability and sustained reproduction. They weather storms, survive droughts, endure frosts. Their persistence is a form of strength, a slow accumulation of presence. To see an old bracket fungus, weathered and scarred, is to witness patience incarnate. Time has passed over it, seasons and years, and it remains, still growing, still producing spores, still participating in the life of the forest. Fungi can reproduce without mating. Many fungi can clone themselves, producing offspring genetically identical to the parent. This asexual reproduction happens when a piece of mycelium breaks off and establishes a new colony, or when spores form without genetic exchange. Asexual reproduction is fast and efficient, allowing fungi to colonize new areas quickly. It is especially useful in stable environments where the existing genetic blueprint works well. However, relying solely on cloning limits genetic diversity, making populations vulnerable to disease and changing conditions. Most fungi can also reproduce sexually, combining genes from two parents to create variation. This flexibility, the ability to switch between sexual and asexual reproduction depending on circumstances, gives fungi an advantage. They can respond to their environment, choosing the strategy that best suits the moment. This reproductive versatility is another key to fungal success. They are not locked into one path, but can adapt, using whatever method works. Life, for fungi, is about options, about maintaining the flexibility to survive whatever comes. Some fungi have thousands of mating types. In the fungal world, reproduction can be far more complex than in animals. While humans have two biological sexes, some fungi have thousands of mating types, each compatible with many others. This system, based on genetic compatibility rather than fixed sexes, dramatically increases reproductive opportunities. Any two individuals of different mating types can mate. making it much easier for fungi to find partners. The split-gill mushroom has over 20,000 mating types, an extreme example of this strategy. This diversity ensures that even in sparse populations, fungi can reproduce sexually, maintaining genetic variation. It is a radically different approach to reproduction, one that defies easy categorization. For fungi, sex is not about male and female, but about chemical compatibility, about matching genetic codes. This fluidity reminds us that the ways life organizes reproduction are diverse and often surprising. Our human categories do not map neatly onto the rest of the living world. Fungi live by different rules that work beautifully for them. Mushrooms can be found on every continent, from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundra, from deserts to mountain peaks. Fungi have colonized every landmass on Earth. Antarctica, despite its extreme cold, hosts fungi in soils, rocks, and even within glacial ice. The adaptability of fungi, their ability to survive and reproduce in such varied conditions, speaks to their evolutionary success. Wherever there's organic matter, moisture, and time, fungi will find a way. Each continent has its own fungal communities, shaped by local climates, plants, and evolutionary history. Some species are cosmopolitan, found around the world. Others are endemic, restricted to specific regions. This global distribution means that mushrooms are part of ecosystems everywhere, playing their essential roles in nutrient cycling, decomposition, and symbiosis. No matter where you are, fungi are near, working quietly beneath the surface. The fungal kingdom is truly global, a network of networks spanning the planet, connecting forests and grasslands, deserts and wetlands, in an invisible web of life. Some mushrooms can grow on living insects. Beyond cordyceps, which infect and kill insects, there are fungi that grow on living insects without killing them. These fungi colonize the insect's exoskeleton or live in its gut, sometimes providing benefits to the host. Some insects actively cultivate fungi, farming them as food sources. Leaf-cutter ants are famous for this, harvesting leaves and bringing them to underground gardens where they grow a specific fungus. The ants tend the fungus, weeding out competitors and harvesting it to feed their colony. The fungus, in turn, depends entirely on the ants for cultivation and dispersal. This mutualism is so tight that neither partner can survive without the other. It is an ancient relationship, millions of years old, refined into an intricate partnership. Other insects, like some beetles and termites, also farm fungi. These relationships show that agriculture is not a human invention, but a strategy that has evolved independently multiple times in the natural world. Fungi, ever adaptable, have become partners not just with plants, but with animals, entering into collaborations that benefit all involved. Fungi can alter the behavior of plants. Through chemical signaling, fungi can influence how plants grow and respond to their environment. Mycorrhizal fungi can trigger plants to allocate more resources to root growth, enhancing the partnership. Some fungi produce hormones that affect plant development, encouraging branching or altering flowering times. Others release volatile compounds that plants detect and respond to, sometimes increasing their defenses against pests. This communication is subtle and complex, a dialogue conducted in chemistry. Plants and fungi have been conversing this way for hundreds of millions of years, developing a shared language of molecules. The influence goes both ways. Plants also signal to fungi, attracting beneficial species and repelling harmful ones. This back and forth shapes the growth and health of both partners. It is cooperation at the molecular level, invisible but profound. The forest is not a collection of independent organisms, but a community in constant communication. And fungi are among the most eloquent speakers. Some mushrooms smell like garlic. A few mushroom species carry the unmistakable scent of garlic, so strong that you can smell them before you see them. The aptly named garlic mushroom releases compounds similar to those in garlic cloves, giving it a pungent, savory aroma. For foragers, the smell is a helpful identification marker. For the mushroom, these volatile compounds may deter some animals while attracting others. Smell is a versatile tool, and fungi wield it skillfully. The garlic scent can linger on your hands after handling these mushrooms, a reminder of the encounter. In cooking, garlic mushrooms can add a double layer of flavor, their own earthiness enhanced by the garlic notes. It is curious how fungi can mimic the scents of plants and spices, creating aromatics through convergent chemistry. Different organisms, solving different problems, sometimes arrive at similar solutions. The result, for us, is a forest that occasionally smells like a kitchen, nature producing fragrances we recognize and appreciate, connecting the wild and the cultivated in unexpected ways. Others smell like anise or licorice. The anise-scented clitocybe, another aromatic mushroom, releases a sweet, licorice-like fragrance. The smell is so distinctive that experienced foragers can identify it by scent alone. This aroma comes from compounds related to anethyl, the chemical that gives anise and fennel their characteristic smell. For the mushroom, the scent may attract certain insects or discourage herbivores. For humans, it is pleasant, almost medicinal, a smell that evokes candy and herbal teas. These aromatic mushrooms blur the boundaries between food and flavor, between forest and pharmacy. They remind us that the compounds we use to season food, to make perfumes and medicines, often exist already in nature, produced by organisms for their own purposes. We borrow them, extract them, cultivate them. The mushroom does not make its scent for us, but we benefit nonetheless, finding delight in chemical coincidences, in the overlap between fungal survival strategies and human sensory pleasures. Mushrooms are important in traditional Asian medicine. In China, Japan, Korea, and other Asian countries, medicinal mushrooms have been used for thousands of years. Reishi, known as the mushroom of immortality, is prescribed to enhance vitality and longevity. Shiitake is valued for immune support. Turkey tail, maitake, cordyceps all have traditional uses backed by centuries of empirical observation. These mushrooms are prepared as teas, tinctures, or powders, and are considered tonics, substances that improve overall health rather than treating specific diseases. Modern research has begun investigating the bioactive compounds in these mushrooms, finding polysaccharides, terpenoids, and other molecules with potential therapeutic effects. While not all traditional claims have been validated scientifically, many have shown promise in laboratory and clinical studies. The integration of traditional knowledge and modern science is ongoing, with medicinal mushrooms occupying a space where ancient wisdom meets contemporary research. These fungi represent a living tradition, a bridge between past and future, between cultural practice and scientific inquiry. Some fungi can survive in space. When spores and fungal samples have been exposed to the vacuum of space, intense radiation, and extreme temperatures. Some have survived. These experiments, conducted on the outside of spacecraft and satellites, reveal just how tough fungi can be. Protected by their cell walls and equipped with repair mechanisms for DNA damage, some spores can endure conditions that would obliterate most life. This resilience raises intriguing possibilities. Could fungi travel between planets on meteorites, seeding life across the solar system? Could they be used to help sustain human colonies in space, breaking down waste and producing food? Fungi's ability to survive space suggests they are among the hardiest forms of life on Earth. They have endured every terrestrial challenge and now, it seems, can even withstand the cosmos. These experiments expand our understanding of life's limits, showing that the boundaries we imagine are often narrower than reality. Life, especially fungal life, is more robust, more adventurous than we give it credit for. Mushrooms can clean oil spills. In the aftermath of oil spills, fungi have been tested as biological cleanup agents. Certain species can break down hydrocarbons, the molecules that make up crude oil. They secrete enzymes that cleave the carbon chains, transforming toxic oil into simpler, less harmful compounds. This process, called bioremediation, offers a way to treat contaminated soil and water without harsh chemicals or expensive machinery. Pilot projects have shown promise, with oiled areas treated with fungi recovering faster than untreated controls. The fungi don't remove the oil instantly. It takes time, weeks or months, but the process is thorough and gentle on the environment. Mycelium can penetrate deep into soil, reaching oil that mechanical methods might miss. As concerns about pollution grow, fungi offer tools that work with nature rather than against it. They are proof that solutions to human-caused problems often already exist in the natural world, waiting to be recognized and applied. Mushrooms, quiet and unassuming, may help us heal some of the damage we have done. Some mushrooms taste like lobster. The lobster mushroom, bright orange-red and irregularly shaped, earns its name from its seafood-like flavor. Interestingly, the lobster mushroom is not a single species, but the result of a parasitic fungus colonizing another mushroom, usually a Russula or Lactarius. The parasite transforms the host, changing its color, texture, and taste. The result is safe to eat and prized by foragers for its firm texture and sweet, shellfish-like flavor. It is a curious example of how fungal parasitism can create something entirely new, something that neither organism would produce alone. The lobster mushroom reminds us that the fungal world is full of interactions, relationships where one organism affects another, sometimes harmfully, sometimes neutrally, sometimes in ways that benefit both. Nature is not a collection of isolated individuals, but a web of influences, where identity itself can be fluid, shaped by encounters and colonizations. The mushroom you find may be more than it seems, a composite, a collaboration, a transformation. Others taste like chicken of the woods, a bright orange and yellow bracket fungus, grows in large shelves on trees. When young and fresh, its texture and flavor are remarkably similar to chicken, earning it a devoted following among foragers. It can be sautéed, baked, or grilled, and it absorbs flavors well, making it versatile in the kitchen. For vegetarians and those reducing meat consumption, chicken of the woods offers a satisfying alternative, providing protein and a meaty texture without animal products. The resemblance is close enough that first-time tasters are often surprised. How can something growing on a tree taste like poultry? The answer lies in chemistry, in the specific proteins and compounds the mushroom produces. These happen to trigger similar sensory responses in our taste buds and nose as cooked chicken. It is a coincidence, but a fortunate one. Chicken of the Woods shows that mushrooms can fill many roles in our diets, mimicking flavors we crave and providing nourishment in unexpected forms. Mushrooms can form partnerships with orchids. Many orchids, especially during the early stages of life, depend entirely on mycorrhizal fungi. Orchid seeds are tiny, almost dust-like, and contain very little stored energy. They cannot germinate and grow on their own. Instead, they require infection by a fungus that provides sugars and nutrients. The orchid seedling lives as a parasite on the fungus, taking what it needs until it can photosynthesize on its own. Some orchids remain dependent on fungi throughout their lives, never developing chlorophyll and never making their own food. These ghostly, pale orchids live entirely off fungal partners, hidden in forest shade. The relationship between orchids and fungi is ancient and intimate, a partnership that has allowed orchids to diversify into thousands of species, colonizing habitats from tropical jungles to temperate woodlands. Without fungi, orchids would not exist. Every orchid bloom is a testament to this hidden collaboration, a flower made possible by invisible threads beneath the soil.